CG Lil Hank kept it low for a minute, but now that silence just snapped wide open. In this video, we break down what he recently put out about his connection to this case, how his name even got pulled into the mix, and what it could mean for everybody involved as things keep shifting behind the scenes, from key decisions to moments that flip the whole direction of the case. This situation runs deeper than most people think. It's layered. This breakdown sticks strictly to public records, official statements, and details, not gossip or stories.
Boy, hey man, I don't realize you niggas ain't dead, man, 'cause we ain't free, man. I've been chasing nigga, drinking nigga, facing nigga, man, I know I ain't.
Picture this. You riding through Memphis in a red whip, just cooling, not bothering anybody, just minding your own business. Then out of nowhere, shots rip through the windows, glass flying everywhere. One bullet hits you. In a split second, your whole life flips. Paralyzed right there, all because somebody thought you were the ops. That's what happened to an innocent man who just crossed paths with Lil Hank Pooh's crew at the wrong time. Ty's most loyal crash dummy didn't even double-check the target. He sprayed the wrong car, left a man fighting for his life, then smashed up his own ride trying to escape. Sloppy, reckless, pure chaos. And here's the wild part. Even while serving 18 years, Lil Hank still talks bold. He's out here saying the only reason his enemy is still alive is because he's locked up. He said he behind bars, that's the only thing stopping it. That's a dangerous mix of loyalty and madness. By the time we finish unpacking this, you understand why Ty keeps shouting Lil Hank out on track after track. His name isn't random. It carries weight. It carries history. It's not just about hype. It's about how loyalty and street codes can spiral into life-changing consequences. Now let's really break it down. Lil Hank wasn't just some random dude in Memphis. He was deeply tied in with Chopper Gang from early on. When I say tied in, I mean the kind of involvement that ends with an 18-year sentence. But to understand that, you gotta look at where that loyalty started. Hank had been rocking with Pootie since they were kids, running through South Memphis, coming up around the Cane Creek apartments. Growing up there wasn't easy. Survival meant staying solid and staying alert. It wasn't about playing games. It was about reputation and protection. From early on, Hank built a name for being fearless, no hesitation, no fake moves. The numbers tell part of the story too. Pootie went from a local Memphis rapper to pulling 18 million views off one heated track. And right there in the background, holding things down, was Lil Hank, making sure his circle felt protected. That's been echoed by multiple public reports and street conversations alike. While most teenagers were thinking about outfits and girls, Hank was building a different kind of reputation. He moved aggressively when it came to defending his people. That bold loyalty became a key part of Chopper Gang's image. That same energy helped push their name from just another neighborhood crew to something people across the city started whispering about. But before peeling this story back even more, you have to understand Memphis itself. This city has its own blend of Southern culture and real tension. It's a place where neighborhoods carry long memories and reputations stick. In some areas, just being from a certain block can change how people see you. That pressure shapes mindsets fast. South Memphis, where Chopper Gang claimed turf, has seen its share of violence. Families have had to adjust their lives around that reality. Kids grow up exposed to things most people only see on the news. That environment creates a survival-first mentality. Out there, protecting your people becomes everything. There's no middle ground. For Hank, showing weakness wasn't an option. Strength meant respect. Loyalty meant power. That's how he built his standing, in a world where bold moves get attention and hesitation gets ignored. And Memphis gang culture doesn't always follow the typical blueprint. You've got well-known national sets like the Crips and Bloods, but you also got smaller, homegrown crews with their own codes. Chopper Gang fell into that category, a street-created group moving on its own rules. That independence made them unpredictable, and that unpredictability made situations escalate fast. Now let's really break down how Chopper Gang came together, because this wasn't some overnight glow-up. Pootie, Big 30, Lil Hank, and a few solid guys from different parts of Memphis locked in with one mission: get to the money by any means. This was mid-2000s Memphis, when the streets still had that raw edge and nothing was polished. Every day felt like survival of the fittest. Pootie naturally stepped into the leader role. He had the vision, the personality, and most important, the street reputation to hold it down. His father was already known around Memphis, running Mob Ties records while dealing with his own legal issues. That family name gave Pootie instant respect in the city, but it also painted a target on him. Everybody knew who he was, and when people know your name, pressure follows. And every leader needs protection. That's when Lil Hank stepped in like a true soldier. While Pootie focused on business moves, building connections, and pushing his music career forward, Hank stayed active on the ground. He made sure nobody tested the gang's name. He was the backup plan, the one who stood firm when things got tense. Their structure was simple but strict. Pootie called the major shots. Big 30, Hank, and the rest of the crew carried things out. But Hank stood out for one big reason. He never hesitated. While others might pause before stepping into risky situations, Hank moved first. First one riding out. First one ready to show that loyalty meant action, not words. That mindset earned him the reputation as Pootie's main protector, and that came with serious weight. By the time 2018 and 2019, when Pootie's team started catching real buzz in the rap game, Hank was still heavily tied to the streets. He kept things steady back home so Pootie could focus on music without constant distractions. It created a clear split. Pootie became the face, the one doing interviews, shining under lights. Hank stayed behind the scenes, handling situations that never made it to social media. In those early Chopper Gang days, it wasn't just about cash, it was about territory and respect. Memphis is the type of city where word travels fast. People know who is active and who is just talking. Hank made sure Chopper Gang had a reputation for being serious, not just loud. Reports and street talk connected Hank's name to multiple tense situations that helped build that reputation. Incidents that never hit mainstream headlines, but still shaped how people viewed the crew. In certain circles, those stories turned into legends, and every time they were mentioned, Hank's name carried weight. One story that still gets brought up involves a rival group stepping into what was considered Chopper Gang territory. Instead of online back and forth, the response was immediate. According to accounts, Hank handled it directly and quickly. That move sent a message without needing speeches. It reinforced the idea that the block wasn't up for debate. That moment strengthened Hank's standing even more. While Pootie was traveling to A-Town and LA, working in studios, connecting with industry figures, and building fame, Hank remained in Memphis, keeping things stable. In the streets, success often invites challenges. When someone starts shining, others test boundaries. Hank became the layer of protection that kept those challenges from getting too close. As Pootie's music career expanded, dropping collaborations with artists like Lil Durk and gaining national attention, the contrast became sharper. Pootie was evolving into a recognized name, showing diamonds, performing on bigger stages. Meanwhile, Hank stayed focused on maintaining order at home. But despite that difference in lifestyle, the connection between them didn't weaken, it tightened. Even as fame grew and distance stretched between cities, Pootie continued to acknowledge who was holding things together in Memphis. Behind every spotlight moment, there was groundwork being maintained. And in that foundation, Lil Hank's role was impossible to ignore. That's why you keep hearing Hank's name echoed in track after track. Behind every verse, every performance, every headline, there was loyalty stitched into the story. It wasn't random shout-outs, it was respect. Those mentions were Pootie's way of showing love to the work being done off camera, the pressure being handled quietly while the spotlight stayed on him. But the bigger the name got, the brighter the spotlight burned, and that spotlight brought heat. As Chopper Gang's reputation grew, it started catching attention from Memphis PD and eventually federal authorities. That kind of exposure adds serious pressure, especially for someone already living on edge, where one mistake can flip your whole future. Now this is where things get intense. Memphis has long had a North versus South tension that runs deep. It's not new, it's history layered with rivalry. Once Chopper Gang became heavily tied to the South Side, friction with certain North Side crews felt automatic. One of the main opposing groups people talked about was EBG, and these weren't just internet personalities. They had their own reputation in the streets.
When Pooh Shiesty dropped that Back in Blood verse alongside Lil Durk, a lot of listeners thought it was just a hard line. But the people in Memphis, it sounded personal. That lyric, you know who took that from you. Come get it back in blood. Hit different. It wasn't seen as a metaphor. It felt like a direct message connected to real tension. According to conversations around the city, there had been an alleged incident involving members tied to Chopper Gang in a location connected to EBG. The talk was that weapons were taken. Whether fully confirmed or not, The story spread fast, and in street culture, perception can carry as much weight as fact. The message people took from it was simple: lines had been crossed. Moves like that don't just shift power physically, they mess with people mentally, they create pressure. And EBG didn't stay quiet. They responded musically, releasing their own remix and publicly showing their stance. Some were even seen wearing shirts labeled CGK, meaning Chopper Gang Killer. At that point, it stopped being just music. It became a visible rivalry playing out for everyone to witness. Hank wasn't known for sitting back. Street conversation suggested he was ready to respond quickly, wanting to make it clear that Chopper Gang stood behind their words. To him, loyalty wasn't optional, reputation wasn't negotiable. But it wasn't just one crew watching. As Chopper Gang's presence expanded, other groups across Memphis started paying attention too. The city was heating up, and Hank was right in the center of that storm. Memphis street politics are complicated. Different neighborhoods, different alliances, old grudges, personal disputes, everything layered together. In the middle of that maze stood Hank, carrying the image of being the one who handled problems. If Pootie had tension, Hank felt it too. Every perceived threat, every rumor, every sideways comment, he absorbed it like it was personal. That kind of constant pressure builds up. Being seen as the main enforcer for a crew stacking rivals can wear on a person. Not every conflict makes headlines. Some never even make it into songs, but they still carry consequences. In that environment, respect and disrespect often trigger immediate reactions. Hank built a reputation for acting fast. No long speeches, just movement. But living like that keeps your nerves tight. You start scanning every car, every face, every unfamiliar movement. When you're surrounded by active tension, your brain stops seeing normal life. It starts seeing threats everywhere. And that mindset changes how you react. Then 2020 hit, and everything shifted. The Back in Blood wave had exploded. Memphis was under national attention. Chopper Gang's name was buzzing heavy, but that fame came with extra eyes, from rivals and from law enforcement. Pressure was high on all sides. One day, Hank was reportedly riding through the city, just moving around, possibly handling everyday matters. That's when he noticed a red Infiniti on the road. Now here's what matters. When you're deeply involved in ongoing conflicts, similar cars can trigger alarms in your head. There had been talk about rivals driving similar vehicles. In that split second, Hank made a decision. No pause, no verification, acting purely on instinct, believing it was opposition entering their area. And that one decision would change everything. He allegedly opened fire, convinced he was defending his crew and sending a message. In his mind, it may have felt like another moment of proven loyalty, another act of protection, another demonstration that he stood solid for Chopper Gang. But the reality was devastating. The vehicle didn't belong to any rival crew. It was a regular civilian, a hard-working man simply driving through the area unaware of any of this tension. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong assumption. The red car resembled something Hank believed was connected to rivals. That tragic similarity cost an innocent man his health and forever changed multiple lives. What Hank may have seen as defending reputation turned into a life-altering mistake. That moment flipped everything. The same loyalty that built his standing in the streets became the reason he lost his freedom. And once the investigation unfolded, the consequences were permanent. A single split-second choice, made under pressure and fueled by paranoia, led to an 18-year sentence. And just like that, the image of the fearless enforcer turned into a cautionary tale about how fast things can spiral when tension, loyalty, and instinct collide. Shots ripped through the car, and the innocent man was hit multiple times. In seconds, he was paralyzed from the waist down. One moment, he was just a working man trying to get home and provide for his family. The next, his entire world flipped upside down. Now he has to live a life where even basic movement requires help. That kind of change doesn't just shake you, it breaks everything you knew. He had zero ties to street drama. No crew, no beef, no involvement. Just a regular civilian who happened to drive down the wrong block at the worst possible time. That's the harsh reality of that crash dummy mindset. It's reckless and chaotic. Instead of stopping to figure out who he actually shot, Hank panicked. He jumped back in his vehicle, adrenaline pumping, probably realizing something wasn't adding up. But by then, it was too late. As he tried to speed away, still rattled from what he had just done, he lost control. The car swerved hard and smashed into a pole. The crash was brutal. The vehicle was wrecked, and Hank ended up trapped inside. Witnesses immediately called police. By the time officers pulled up, the scene was chaos. A damaged car, shell casings scattered, and Hank still stuck in the wreck. Everything lined up too clean. The gunfire, the eyewitness accounts, the crash, it all connected. There was no escaping it. What he may have thought was another act of loyalty turned into the moment that sealed his future and forever altered an innocent man's life. Once police pieced it together, it was over. The evidence pointed straight at him. That night closed the door on everything he thought he was protecting. He was sentenced to 18 years for attempted murder. Meanwhile, a man who had nothing to do with any rivalry was left paralyzed for life, all because Hank acted without taking even a few seconds to confirm what he was seeing. That split-second decision cost two families everything. The case moved quickly. Prosecutors came with strong evidence. Ballistics matched, witnesses identified him, the motive tied back to ongoing tension linked to Chopper Gang and the climate in Memphis at the time. His defense team tried different angles, confusion, mistaken identity, but the facts were tight. There was no way to spin it in court. When details about the victim's condition were read aloud, the courtroom reportedly went silent. This wasn't just a temporary injury. This was a lifetime of surgeries, therapy, and emotional recovery. His family had to restructure their entire lives to support him. The physical damage was devastating, but the emotional toll cut even deeper. It wasn't just one person hurt. It was a whole household forced into a new reality overnight. The judge didn't sugarcoat anything. During sentencing, he made it clear this was not self-defense or some misunderstanding. He described it as reckless and avoidable, a senseless act that shattered an innocent life. For Hank's own family, the sentence was crushing. They lost a son, a brother, a friend, not only to prison, but to the consequences of his actions. And they knew another family was suffering too. A family that had no connection to any street situation, now living through a nightmare because of one moment. The impact spread across Memphis like a shockwave. Now you would think nearly 20 years behind bars might force reflection, maybe remorse, maybe change. But according to reports and social media activity, Hank's mindset didn't shift the way many expected. Even from prison, he kept that same intense energy. Online posts surfaced after his sentencing, where he sounded defiant. One message claimed the only reason his enemies were still alive is because he was locked up. He suggested that if he were free, things would look different. That statement shocked a lot of people. Instead of focusing on the innocent man who will never walk again, the tone stayed rooted in rivalry. It showed how deeply that loyalty code was ingrained. To some, it looked like pride instead of reflection. Hank appeared to treat prison like a pause, not a consequence. No public apology, no visible remorse, just the same mentality that led to the tragedy in the first place. That's how strong that crash dummy mindset can become, when losing your freedom feels like proof of dedication instead of a warning sign. And the loyalty didn't stop on the outside. Despite everything, Pooh Shiesty never publicly distanced himself. He continued mentioning Hank in songs, keeping his name circulating. To mainstream listeners, it might have sounded like tribute, but in Memphis, it carried deeper meaning.
Loyalty still matters in that circle. That's how Chopper Gang was structured from the beginning. Ride or die, no matter what happens. The continued mentions of Hank in Pootie's music weren't just random nostalgia. They served a purpose. They kept his name active in Memphis, reminding people that standing solid gets acknowledged, even when the ending is tragic. It also sent a clear message to the rest of the crew. Loyalty doesn't get erased just because things went left. At the same time, law enforcement used Hank's case as a major example. An innocent man paralyzed in the middle of gang tension gave prosecutors a strong narrative. They pointed to it as proof that tougher action was needed against street crews in Memphis. Hank's downfall became part of a bigger push to crack down harder. But here's where it gets complicated. While the system treated his story as a warning sign, some young people in the city saw it differently. To certain crowds, Hank became a symbol, a strange mix of caution and pride. For some, his story said, "Don't go down this road." For others, it looked like proof of dedication, a tragic situation wrapped up in street admiration. Some saw that 18-year sentence and realized fast that gang life can cost everything. But others focused on his loyalty and labeled him solid no matter what.
And that's where the darker truth sits. This crash dummy mentality can twist reality. Hank was so locked into proving himself, so determined to protect the crew, that one split-second choice destroyed multiple lives. The civilian he shot is living with permanent consequences, paralyzed for life, facing endless medical treatment, therapy sessions, and emotional battles. His family now carries that weight daily, financially, mentally, physically. They had no part in any rivalry, yet they pay the price every day. And the hardest part? His story barely gets mentioned in songs or street talk. Before that night, he had goals, a routine, responsibilities, maybe children who looked up to him, maybe a job he took pride in. In one chaotic moment, all of that was taken. Now, basic movement requires assistance. That mental shift alone can break a person. Meanwhile, instead of standing beside Pootie as his trusted right hand, helping grow Chopper Gang's brand, Hank is sitting behind bars. 18 years during what should have been the prime of his life. While others tour, record music, and build careers, he watches from a cell. The streets respect loyalty, no doubt, but there's a thin line between loyalty and recklessness, and Hank crossed it. What started as dedication turned into destruction. It hurt the victim, it hurt the victim's family, it hurt his own family, and it even hurt Chopper Gang, losing someone they once depended on. This is the raw truth about that crash dummy lifestyle. It sounds intense in songs, it gets hyped up, it gets glamorized like it's all about honor and respect. But when reality hits, it's prison time, broken families, and innocent people caught in crossfire. Hank learned that the hardest way possible. Now he has years to reflect on whether that loyalty was worth losing everything. So what do you think? Was Hank's loyalty something to respect, or was it straight recklessness? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this on Street Smoke so more people can see the real truth behind these stories. Stay sharp and stay safe.